Okay, I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of the test framework. So here we are in the unit test harness creator. I've got a folder ID, and this is a link to a site called jasonblob.com, which is right here. And this is essentially just kind of a folder for all of the test harnesses that I've created. I've got 4 in here that you can see. So we're going to create another one right now. So I'm going to say we're going to do the test environment. We want to do 50 records. That's a little strong. Let's do 30 records of all the DBI permits to test script execution. We're going to show debug equal true. We don't want to include the debug in the output. That makes for really, really big JSON files. We're going to run this in batch mode, which means we're going to roll back all the transactions. We don't want to use the validate fees. That's a special feature. Record type mask to match what we want to test, and then we're going to tell it we want to do 30 records each. And then if we scroll down here, here's all the events that we're going to simulate, and then here are all the here's all the event parameter data, like the workflow tasks and statuses and things like that that we're going to simulate. So we're going to do a quick copy paste here. We're going to paste this into our test environment and click submit. Should take just a little bit. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to go out there and gather up all of those records and create this big JSON object called the test harness. I'm going to pause it while this is running. Okay, just finished about a minute, maybe 2 minutes later, and this put out a link to our test harness, which we're already have our browser open, to our folder, which our browser already has that open. And then this next line is that our test harness is created, and then it'll give us a URL to that. So let me grab this. First we'll go refresh our test harness, our test folder, and now you can see we've got 5 test harnesses, and then here's this one. So it's basically just keeping track of what we've got. And then for this one, here's the test harness for this test that we want to run. Essentially all the values that we just saw when we were creating this, except now we have under types, we have all the record types that we said that we wanted to test, and then under each record type there's an alt ID. And it's kind of interesting how it selects these. It'll split it in 2 and select half of them old records and half of them new records, just in case there's some old data in there. Okay, so now we've got a test harness, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this ID, which is our test job, and we're going to go back to our script unit tester, and we're just going to say, hey, we want to use this ID. And then take this whole script, go back to Excella, and this is kind of manual process right now, but we're going to say we want to copy this into our regression test folder. I'm going to pause and do a quick clear of the cache. Okay, cache is cleared. Now we'll go to our batch job, search for a regression test. What do we call that? Oh, I haven't created it here yet. We'll do a new batch job. we've got it up here. So now we'll just go execute that. And I'll pause until we have our results. Okay, it looks like we're back. This regression test took quite a bit of time. As you can see, it took about 30 minutes to run. And if we go look at the output here, you can see that it actually is going to contain all the debug output for any log message statements that all the simulated events are doing. But what's important is that we've got a test folder location here, and if we go back to our test, here's our test 30 to test. So if we go take a look at this, you can see now that we have, when we reload that, we see we have results here, and this is going to be basically, we can re-execute this test and then get a number of different results here. So this is our first result for this particular test. If we run it again, we'd get another entry here. So we can go take a look at the results. And this is loading, and it's probably a pretty giant file, I would say. You'll see why in a minute. Okay, so for every record type, here are 30 records. So what's 19 times 30? Quite a bit. 570 records that we ran through, and then we ran for a lot of different events for each one. So here's for additional inspections. There's 30 records that ran here. Here's the first record, and then here's 18 events that we simulated. And if we take a look at the first one, it's convert to real cap after. Here we've got our event details, and then since we don't see any result here, that means that it's completed successfully without any issues. And here's another one. Here's our application submit after. It's got one warning, getting parcel conditions by parcel number not found. So this is just the script execution throwing a warning. If we asked for the full debug, we could look at the entire debug for this output. But in this case, since we didn't ask for the full debug, it's just going to parse out any errors or any warnings that we get. So let's just kind of click through. Application specific info update before was fine. Update after was fine. Here's workflow task update before. And this one is interesting because we're actually saying we're going to simulate it with this workflow task, application intake, and this status of approved. And we've got the same warning there. So I'm just going to do a quick search for error. Hopefully this won't bog out this browser. Just for fun, yeah, 500 something records is probably not the max you want to do, just because this file gets pretty unwieldy. Yeah, it looks like the browser is having a little trouble with it. So what I still don't have is a good way to grab this data and do some reporting on the JSON on it. But hopefully this will give you a good idea of how kind of the start of this framework, and see where we can go from here. I know Dane had some ideas on how to automate it, and I think we probably should put our heads together and see if we can find different ways to do some reporting on here. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Take care.